Hey there everybody, Elizabeth Hines here from TotalWellnessHealthCoaching.com and Functional Medicine Living here on YouTube. I have a very helpful teenager who was doing the dishes and actually ran the dishwasher when it was full, forgetting that I said I was about to film. So I've waited as long as I could. It's dinner time, the light is going, and I just had to get on with the recipe. So we'll edit out as much of the dishwasher sound as possible, but you'll probably be able to hear it a little bit. And as soon as it gets to a stopping point, I will stop it. But I apologize for that in advance. So obviously we're back in the kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen. It's October, and today we're making what I called mummy dogs, and my son called Hallo-weenies, which I thought was a much more fun name. So we're making Paleo Hallo-weenies. So paleo is completely grain-free, so not just gluten-free, but free of all grains. So most gluten-free products contain other grain flours like rice. So today we're working with what is essentially my autoimmune paleo tortilla recipe. I've just altered it a little bit to try to make the dough a little hardier, a little stretchier to work for this application. So in this bowl we have arrowroot, cassava, which is also from a root, tapioca, another root, salt, and lard. Instead of lard, you could use cold palm shortening, but honestly the lard works really well. It tastes really good, and if you get it from good quality pasture-raised hogs, it's a healthy choice. So, and then we're going to add water and make our dough. We're going to roll it out. We're going to wrap it around our hot dogs, which today I have these spicy sausages, which were just in the freezer, and so I thought I needed to use those. So these are uncooked. And then these are those Teton sausages, which is a grass-fed sausage. It's basically a big hot dog, and I buy those at Costco. So this recipe, it'll be up on my website, printed in a printable form for you. It makes plenty of dough. Some people like to wrap around a lot of dough. Some people just want like a teeny bit. If you have leftover dough that you don't need for your Hallo-weenies, I have to say it like that, you can just make tortillas out of it. And I'm not going to show you how to do it because I have to get on my burner and all that kind of stuff, but I have a video of it, so you can watch the video. But I wanted to show you actually this part where I get my liquid in, because these particular flours, the arrowroot, cassava, and tapioca, are so dry that it may look like, wow, that's just gobs and gobs of water. The recipe calls for about 3/4 of a cup of water, between 3/4 and a cup, but it'll absorb, and you'll potentially even end up needing to add a little bit more. I'll kind of show you as I go through the process what I do. When I was practicing this recipe, again, I started with I'll just call them AIP for autoimmune paleo. I started with that basic recipe because I thought it would work better than my typical pastry dough that I would make a pie crust out of, because that one's so fragile. So I have been experimenting with this. And I did make the dough ahead of time once and put it in the fridge, and it works just as well. So whether you have time to make this like in the morning or maybe the night before when you already have your kitchen dirty and you're making it for the next night, it'll work just fine. You can make it fresh. This dough seems pretty wet right now, which actually you need it to be pretty wet. And I'm going to go ahead and start working with it like it is. I might end up adding a little bit more. But it's so nice. It's not sticky, but I can work with it. It's not falling apart. And you just start to roll it out. And you notice I didn't even put any flour on my countertop, which you probably are not going to have to. Well, it depends on what kind of surface you have. So sometimes it'll do that. It'll kind of rip apart. Just kind of put it back together. This is Absolutely not necessary. This is strictly a fun recipe to make around Halloween time. If you have kids or kids at heart that you're cooking for who enjoy Halloween and want to have that special stuff, but maybe mom's on a diet, not a like diet, but the way we eat is called our diet, right? Mom's eating a special way or dad's eating a special way for his health, and I don't want to eat the healthy food or special food or whatever. So here you go. You can have mummy dogs or Halloweenies just like everybody else. Yours are not made with crescent roll dough from the grocery store, but in fact, these will taste better. And yes, you had to make your dough yourself, but then it's not going to make you sick. So I just go, you can take as much time and be as fancy with it as you want. But first of all, I dried off my sausages because if they're wet, then the dough won't stick very well. And as I apply it to the sausage, I just kind of press down so it gets flat. And then start wrapping it around. If you make your little snake of dough too long, it's just a little more difficult to work with. And then from the bottom, I just go back up so it kind of crisscrosses. And it was a little thin right there and it broke, and it's no big deal. And then you just put it on your tray, and we'll put them in the oven. Now, I made these two ways. I baked them in the oven. Actually, I need to turn my oven up. So, bake at 400 for, honestly, I don't know about these sausages. I think the timing ought to be right. I only have made them with hot dogs, which are pre-cooked. And that took about 15 minutes. So, we'll see if it takes a little longer for those sausages, because obviously you want them to be cooked. But I actually liked them better in the air fryer. That took 10 minutes at 350 in the air fryer. And they really came out great. So if you have an air fryer, you can do that too. So then I'll just take a little bit more. And you see how this goes. That's really all there is to it. Just because it's a little cumbersome to work with when it gets too long, you just break it. Carry on. So we got to the bottom. So we just want to start going back up, crisscrossing over. We have these left over as well. We just heated them up in the microwave, honestly, and they were great. This dough does heat up really well. In fact, because it's kind of a pain, honestly, to make these homemade tortillas, when I make them, like if we're going to have fish tacos, something like that, I make a triple or quadruple batch. I really make a lot. And then the kids just eat them. They make quesadillas at lunch or just whatever. And heat them up in the microwave just fine. Okay, so I'm just going to continue like this. This is really all there is to it until I have them all done. Alrighty, so here we are, all done, all ready to go in the oven. And as I said, I know the hot dogs will do well at 400 for about 15 minutes. I'm not sure about these sausage ones, so we'll kind of experiment. Let me get these in the oven, and then I'll talk to you some more. It's just my husband and I tonight, and I have this little bit of frozen French fries left. So I'm going to pop those in the oven as well. Okay, so I left my flowers out because I thought that I had a rubber band. There was a chance that I would need to put a little flour on my counter, but I did not need to. So I can put my flour away. And those were 8 big hot dogs. And I've got enough dough left for 4 or 5 tortillas maybe. The longer your dough sits, the drier it will get, and you'll probably need to add a little bit more water, which is totally not a big deal. I mean, I would rather add some water and make my life easier because they'll just fall apart if the dough is really dry. So let me show you how I make the tortillas. The dough is basically the same for the AIP tortillas. I just don't include the tapioca. It's just arrowroot, cassava, and salt, and then lard. I made my dog a little too skinny. Let's see. Yeah, that's probably good for one. I do have an old video, which I will link, but I have figured out an easier way to roll out this dough than I think when I did that video. So I'm going to show you that. So I use a piece of parchment, and I do, actually usually I pull out my big roll of parchment from Costco. I love these sheets. And so when I do this, I'll use a little bit of a bigger piece. Just kind of pat it out a little bit. Either put another piece of parchment on top or just fold your piece over. And then roll it out. And you really want to roll this dough very thin. I mean, like, I hate to say tissue paper thin, but almost tissue paper thin. It's very sturdy. And when you cook the tortillas, they hold up really well. They will not crack unless you overcook them. And they're perfect for fish tacos, shrimp tacos, any kind of tacos, really. So just make them, let them sit there, and then I cook them in my cast iron skillet. I usually put in a little lard, but I'm just almost out of lard, so I won't cook these in lard tonight. I'll just use a little avocado oil just until they are set and just slightly browned. It just takes a couple minutes per side. The cooking of them that I showed you on my old video is it still stands, but I don't think I was rolling them out in the parchment when I made them years ago. So this is definitely an easier way to do it than just on your counter. Just peel the parchment off. You can tell, even as thin as the dough is, not cooked, it's staying together when I move it around. And it's partly the flours, but it's partly that I have enough water in my dough. Like, I think that's one of the secrets to making any kind of rolled dough, a pie crust or these tortillas, something like that, is don't let your dough be too dry. If you accidentally get too much water or liquid, whatever kind of liquid you're using, you can always add a little extra flour if you need to. And that's all there is to it. So I'm just going to keep doing this while my Hallo-weenies bake. And I will show you the finished product. Okay, so here are our Hallo-weenies, or mummy dogs, out of the oven. Now, I told you 400 degrees, 15 minutes, but that is for hot dogs, which are already fully cooked. These sausages, which were not cooked at all, took 30 minutes. And what you should know about this type of dough is that it's not going to brown like some other doughs might, or even think back to crescent rolls out of the little package. The dough is white, this color, when it is raw. When you bake it, it's a nice golden brown, a little bit like this. But this autoimmune paleo type dough doesn't brown like that. So here are my tortillas that I cooked in the pan. And you can see there's some brown on here, but these are like the bubbles, and I did them really high in my cast iron skillet, so they charred a little bit, so they'd have that tortilla type look and flavor and texture. And can you hear? Like, there's a crispiness to it, but they're still pliable. So just know that you're cooking these, yes, to cook the dough, but it's really just to set the dough, because really, when you put them in a skillet, or in a 400-degree oven, the dough is going to cook pretty quickly. You're needing to make sure your hot dog is either hot all the way through or your sausage is cooked in this case. So don't they look cute? You could take a little, I don't know, if you want to really be fancy and put eyes on them, you could cut a little tiny piece of a black olive or a bell pepper or something like that. I think they look cute and Halloween-y enough just like that. Of course, if you like the more kind of morbid-y stuff, you could use some ketchup like blood. But it's a fun way to have a special Halloween type treat. It does take a little time. I mean, it probably took me 30 minutes to wrap these. So it's a little bit of a labor of love. But, you know, kids just want to be like everybody else. They just want to be normal. So if they maybe saw a commercial for these, which would have been a commercial for crescent rolls probably, or, you know, they're in magazines, that sort of thing, or they're at a friend's house, or a friend talks about it, or brings it to lunch to school, whatever. Oh, I want that. Well, they can have it too, and it can fit along with everybody's diet. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it's fun for you. And if you don't make the mummy dogs, now you have a little refresher on how to make these AIP tortillas, which are really, really good. It's funny, my kids, they used to be suspicious of all my healthy food, and they wouldn't eat these tortillas for years. And now they beg for them. Oh, are you making tortillas tonight? Because they love them. They taste really, really good. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying your fall. The leaves are starting to turn really pretty here, and we're getting cool weather, and I just love it. It's my favorite time of year. I even have my coffee mug from Hobby Lobby that says I love fall most of all. And I really absolutely do. So I'm trying to enjoy every bit of it, making all the fall things, and sharing them with you. So thank you for spending some time in the kitchen with me today, everybody. I hope you have a great day, make some memories with your family, and I look forward to seeing you back here next time.